Hey everybody, no intro for today because there's a lot of content that I really want to get through. I feel really passionate about this. I just really want to talk about it. This is not going to be a video about the machine learning work I've been doing for my startup. However, it does stem from that. But essentially what's happened is I've been working with machine learning, and I've been learning a lot from Andrej Karpathy's set of machine learning lectures, and it's been really, really great. However, one thing that really stood out to me is that throughout all of the lectures, he doesn't really talk about things in terms of coding, right? He doesn't talk about what I would expect him to talk about. He talks mostly about calculus, right? He talks about these derivatives that show you how much one value affects another value. And honestly, thinking about it, it makes sense, right? In a machine learning program, what we're trying to do is we're taking an input, we're getting an output, and what we want to do is we want to find out how much of this input is affecting this output. And if you remember from calculus in your high school classes or your college courses or whatever else you might have taken, right? The derivative of some function, so the derivative of like a graph, say, is essentially just the slope of the graph. However, one important thing to note is that slope, what that actually represents is how much something changes over some distance, right? If I give you a slope of my car moving, right, the the slope is essentially how much does the x change, or how much does the y change for every x, right? So what that's saying is how far does my car go for every some amount of time, maybe like a second, right? And that's essentially all we're doing in machine learning. We're saying, hey, if we have an input, we want to know how much this input is affecting an output, and then tweaking those values so that the input affects the output differently until it affects it in a way that we want, that it starts outputting the stuff that we want it to output. And this got me thinking, and I came to a pretty big realization, at least for myself, is that a lot of coding is rooted in math, right? Even outside of machine learning, even very basic coding, right? For loops, arrays, all of these things, they're all rooted in statistics. They're rooted in calculus. They're rooted in graph theory. They're rooted in linear algebra, right? And I think it's just, it doesn't make too much of a difference in my life other than me knowing that having mathematical knowledge is super helpful for coding. I just think it's really interesting because at one point I started separating the two. But now that I'm getting into even more content, new content, I'm starting to realize that they aren't this different. They're one and the same.